To breaking news now, a 45-year-old Gold Coast man has been accused of more than 1,500 sex abuse offences against 91 children. The former childcare worker has been charged with more than 200 counts of sexual assault with a child under the age of 10 over the past 15 years in Brisbane, Sydney and overseas.
All the children allegedly offended against were pre-pubescent girls. We allege the 45-year-old man from the Gold Coast recorded all his alleged offending on his phone and cameras. The AFP is highly confident that all 87 Australian children who were recorded in the alleged child abuse material have been identified. Some of the individuals identified in the alleged child abuse material are now aged over 18 years and have been informed.
He will face Brisbane Magistrates Court on August 21.
Good morning, everyone. I am AFP Northern Command Assistant Commissioner Justine Goff. I am here in Brisbane today with Queensland Police Service Acting Assistant Commissioner Cole Briggs and New South Wales Police Force Assistant Commissioner Michael Fitzgerald. Today I will be outlining details of an investigation that will be deeply distressing for many in our community. I know this news will seem unfathomable, and we know there will be many questions. We will answer as many questions as we can. However, this matter is now before the court, and there will be some matters we will not be able to go into. Before I go into details, I am cognizant investigations like these can be re-traumatising for survivors of sexual abuse and loved ones. Please, if distressed, reach out for support or trusted networks. Today, I can outline the details of Operation Tenterfield, an investigation that has led to a former childcare worker being charged with 1,623 child abuse offences against 91 children, including 136 counts of rape and 110 counts of sexual intercourse with a child under 10 in Brisbane, Sydney and overseas between 2007 and 2022. The case is scheduled for a mention in the Brisbane Magistrates Court on the 21st of August 2023. We allege these offences happened at 10 childcare centres in Brisbane between 2007 and 2013 and 2018 to 2022, an overseas location in 2013 and 2014, and one centre in Sydney between 2014 and 2017. All the children allegedly offended against were pre-pubescent girls. We allege the 45-year-old man from the Gold Coast recorded all his alleged offending on his phone and cameras. The AFP is highly confident that all 87 Australian children who were recorded in the alleged child abuse material have been identified. The parents of all the children, the Australian children recorded in the alleged child abuse material, have been informed of the investigation. Some of the individuals identified in the alleged child abuse material are now aged over 18 years and have been informed. Can I please underscore that message to parents and carers? All of the parents and carers of Australian children who were recorded in the alleged child abuse material have been identified of the investigation. The AFP is currently working with an overseas law enforcement jurisdiction to determine the identity of 4 children who were allegedly offended against at an overseas location. The Gold Coast man has been in custody in Queensland since August 2022, when the AFP arrested and charged him initially with 2 counts of making child exploitation material and 1 count of using a carriage service for child pornography material. The AFP launched Operation Tenterfield immediately, and within hours further alleged self-produced child abuse material was identified on the man's alleged electronic devices. Operation Tenterfield has in part focused on identifying the children in the alleged child abuse material. In September 2022, the AFP coordinated a joint agency task force with the Queensland Police Service at the AFP-led Australian Centre to Counter Child Exploitation to review nearly 4,000 seized images and videos the man had allegedly created. In November 2022, the AFP provided evidence to the New South Wales Police Force to enable an investigation for the alleged offending in New South Wales. We have been working tirelessly since August last year to identify the children in the alleged child abuse material. The man worked at other childcare centres, but the AFP is highly confident the man did not allegedly offend at those centres. Law enforcement has been working very closely with all the relevant childcare centres for the past year, and we thank them for their cooperation. Operation Tenterfield has been complex and has involved highly skilled victim identification specialists. Up to 35 members have been involved in the investigation since August 2022. The AFP thanks the Queensland Police Service and the New South Wales Police Force for dedicating resources to the investigation. The genesis of Operation Tenterfield is linked to Queensland Police Service locating alleged child abuse images and videos on the dark web in 2014. Queensland Police Service posted them on an international victim identification database, seeking assistance from the global victim identification community. The AFP and other agencies examined the images, but they contained few distinguishable clues for investigators to follow. But in August 2022, the AFP was able to trace objects identified in the background of the alleged images and videos posted on the dark web between 2013 and 2014 to a Brisbane childcare centre. Following inquiries with the childcare centre, the AFP executed a search warrant on the 20th of August 2022 in Brisbane and arrested the man in Brisbane's southwestern suburbs about 1 a.m. on the 21st of August. He was charged with making and distributing child abuse material that was allegedly posted on the dark web. Over the next 48 hours, the AFP executed 2 further search warrants, including at the man's Gold Coast home, and seized electronic devices allegedly containing child abuse material created by the man. The AFP, working with our law enforcement partners and support services, has ensured parents and carers have received as much information as possible as this investigation continues. The AFP and our partners never gave up trying to identify the alleged offender and the children in the alleged child abuse material. Given there were so many alleged images and videos of children recorded over 15 years of the alleged offenders on the alleged offenders' devices, the process of identification took time, skill, and determination. While I am extremely proud of law enforcement's persistence and their unwavering dedication to identify this alleged offender and stop further abuse, this is chilling news. More broadly, it is with a heavy heart that the AFP and other law enforcement dedicate so much time and resources to prevent and take action against individuals who commit heinous crimes against children. There is not much solace I can give parents and children who have been identified under Operation Tenterfield, but I can tell you we never gave up and we never will when it comes to protecting children. Thank you, and I will now hand over to Acting Assistant Commissioner Cole Briggs.
Good morning. In February 2014, investigators from QPS Task Force Argos, monitoring activity on the darknet, located images of victim children being shared. An extensive examination was launched to identify these children. There are a number of significant challenges in an investigation of this nature. The QPS and our partners never gave up trying to identify the alleged offender and the children in the images. Fortunately for investigators, everything that someone does online leaves a trace. As technology advanced, Argos engaged the support of the Joint Agency Victim Identification Task Force at the Australian Centre to Counter Child Exploitation, where agencies work together to help identify these children, their family and the alleged offender. As a result, the investigations led AFP detectives to make this arrest, one with the assistance of detectives from Argos. The 45-year-old man was subject to 2 reports in Queensland, one in 2021 and another in 2022. Both reports were subject to investigation. However, there was insufficient evidence to take action against any person based on the evidence available to investigators at that time. Following the arrest of the offender in these matters, an internal review was conducted into both investigations. This review confirmed that the matters were appropriately investigated, that there was insufficient evidence available to investigators to take action against any person at that time, and they were conducted in accordance with QPS policy. As the matter is now before the court, we are unable to make any further comment on specific cases at this time in relation to those 2 matters. It is our priority to ensure that we maintain the integrity of court proceedings and to bring justice for the children and their families. This is horrific and extensive alleged offending, and I know this will have an impact on all Queenslanders and Australians. I commend each and every investigator for their relentless work to put this alleged offender before the court. This is another example of how unity between policing jurisdictions in a dedicated investigation can lead to an outcome like this, even in the most complex investigations. Thank you.
Good morning. Today I announce that the New South Wales Police Force have obtained a warrant for the arrest of this 45-year-old man. That warrant relates to 180 charges of child sexual abuse. 23 victims are part of those 180 charges. Those charges carry life imprisonment. Once this man faces the AFP charges here in Queensland, we will be seeking his extradition back to New South Wales. This is one of the most horrific child abuse cases that I've seen in nearly 40 years of policing. And New South Wales Police will continue to relentlessly pursue this matter on behalf of our 23 victims, who remain our #1 priority. Alongside our partner agencies, we are absolutely committed to prosecuting anyone who comes after our most vulnerable. Thank you.
We're happy to now take questions.
Would you compare this man's alleged offending to Shannon McCall in South Australia, who is another man who had access to children through his profession?
So we're not going to make any comparisons, but I can say that all child abuse is abhorrent, and we will combine our resources to high priority to investigate all child abuse.
Are you able to say what his role was within the childcare centres? Was he high level within them?
So the man had all the qualifications to work in childcare centres, and as the matter is now before the court, that's I won't be commenting any further.
Did he have all the required certifications for working with children, or did that legislation sort of come in later on?
The man had all the qualifications required to work in the centres that he worked.
So what does that say about the scrutiny of those so-called precautions put in place to filter such threats?
So the man had all the qualifications that he needed to work in the centres across Queensland, New South Wales, and we won't be making any further comment because the matter is the matter is before the court.
I guess the question so many people are asking is, how was this man able to commit these alleged crimes over such a long period without being red flagged to any law enforcement?
So the AFP did not receive any reports from parents or any other person prior to the man being arrested and charged.
But he must have been trying his luck when you given the sheer weight of offences that there's a certain inevitability, perhaps even without the technology allowing police to catch up with him, of a child making allegations or several children making allegations. That just didn't happen.
These are horrific crimes and are subject to matters before the court. There's very limited that I can say, as these charges will be going before the court. But the AFP never gave up, and our partners never gave up in terms of identifying all of the children, and we're highly confident that all of the children who are subject to the material recorded, the recorded child abuse material, have been identified and contact made with parents and carers.
Given what's likely to be lengthy proceedings in terms of the sheer weight of offences and the fact that it will move from Queensland to New South Wales for further court action, is it fair enough to say that police won't be waiting for the conclusion of these proceedings to make recommendations to Queensland and New South Wales governments about how that scrutiny, the process of scrutinising people who work with children, can be improved? Is it fair enough to say you're going to get proactive on that without waiting for the court proceedings in this matter to finish?
So these are complex matters and they are before the court, and the court processes need to take its process. We have engaged with relevant departments and agencies, but I won't go into any further details in relation to that.
It wouldn't be unfair to assume that you're already proactive in that area.
We have made contact with relevant agencies.
Speaking with the childcare providers, did any of them raise suspicions or anything to you after the fact that they'd thought about this man for these?
The AFP had no information from parents or any other person prior to this man being arrested and charged. The childcare centres have been cooperative with the police during our inquiries.
Were they surprised at all by the allegations that have come through, though?
Look, I'm not going to comment upon the reactions of the childcare centres. I will say that they have been entirely cooperative with our investigation.
Queensland Corrective Services had to go to extraordinary lengths to protect this alleged offender in custody.
I won't make any comment in relation to that.
87 children were recorded. Are you able to break down, like he's got 110 counts of sexual intercourse with a child under 10. Do we know how many children that was, or was it a couple of children multiple times?
Look, I don't have the breakdown of all of those charges, but we're very happy to provide some further analysis to you.
What was the youngest age of a child affected?
So I'm not going to make any comment on that out of respect for the victims. All the victims were prepubescent children. All the victims were girls.
Can we just have a couple of questions to you? In New South Wales, you mentioned the historic nature of this disturbing level of offending. You're a very experienced investigator. What was your reaction personally to the nature of what the police were uncovering as investigations continued?
It's beyond the realms of anyone's imagination what this person did to these children. I can only say that you try not to be shocked after a long period of time in the police and crime reporting, but this is a horrific case, and I'd like to thank the AFP and the Queensland Police for bringing this information to the New South Wales Police so we can bring him before the courts and our victims can get justice.
And this only came to police's attention because of those videos on the dark web that just happened, I suppose, to be linked to what unravelled into this huge case.
Yeah, the AFP undertook a very, very thorough investigation with the Queensland Police Force when that first uncovered, and as a result of that great work, our victims were identified through a hard drive that was found during one of the search warrants.
We've seen what improvements in DNA technology have done over the years in terms of solving cold cases, and the federal police always talk of the constant challenge of keeping up with the dark web and technology. How far ahead did this offender allegedly get ahead of the game, as it were, in terms of his knowledge of technology and the workarounds?
I couldn't go into his understanding of technology. It's something that all police agencies tackle and put a huge amount of resources into to combat not only child abuse but drug-related crime that occurs on the dark web.
What country were the other children in?
If I could just make a comment that the dedication and commitment of victim identification specialists who are highly skilled resulted in putting together the pieces of this puzzle, and I commend the perseverance and dedication of the victim identification specialists. Often there's a shred of detail and it's really painstaking work to try and identify offenders and victims of images and videos that are posted, and this was a process that took place over many years, but the AFP, the Queensland Police Service and other law enforcement never gave up, and it's a real testament to their dedication to protect vulnerable people in our community. Now, in relation to the overseas charges, they are in an overseas country. We are engaging with foreign law enforcement agencies, and as those inquiries are progressing, that's all that I'm prepared to say.
Was this man part of a dark web community where you had to upload child exploitation material to maintain your membership?
There's a number of factors that surround the dark web activity that will be subject to the charges before the court, and I'm not prepared to go into that.
From a Queensland point of view, Acting Commissioner, if we can just get some comments from you, just in terms of reassurance, all parents in Queensland, what would you like to say to them now that what police have done to recommend perhaps a tighter scrutiny of people who work in the company of children, given the certification process existed when this fellow was able to operate? What can you tell us about any advice perhaps that's been given to the Minister or the government generally about improvements that are needed immediately?
I think, as my AFP colleague reiterated before, that these matters before the court, and those are obviously, that's the priority for us at the moment, is looking at those. Obviously we take into consideration as part of any investigation about any improvements that might be made. What I would say and reiterate is that all three agencies are confident that all offences have been identified and that all families have been contacted, and we're confident that there are no outstanding matters.
And sorry, just to clarify, QPS did previously investigate this individual?
Correct.
Given the breadth of material that was found in the AFP investigation, how can QPS feel comfortable that all was done to investigate him appropriately?
Yep, so in regards to the investigation conducted in 2021 and 2022, none of that material was known to the QPS investigators at that time. That came to the awareness of the AFP investigators when they conducted their investigation.
Those reports, were they from the public or from people in positions perhaps from?
Just as some of those matters are before the court, I won't go into details in regards to where the information came from.
I understand that this material was found on the dark web, but was any of this material found in hard drives or in hard copy on any of his devices at his address? Could they have been found previously?
I might hand over to our AFP colleague to answer that one.
After the search warrant and the offender was arrested by police, a joint task force was formed involving the AFP, the Queensland Police Service, and that was conducted at the AFP-led Australian Centre to Counter Child Exploitation, where some 4,000 images that were seized from the offender's phone and cameras were examined, and that led the process of the identification of the alleged victims in this matter.
Your New South Wales colleague said that this is one of the worst cases of child abuse he's seen in 40 years. How does it rate for you as
the AFP, out of respect for victims, does not compare cases. I will reiterate that all child abuse is abhorrent, and all investigative resources are prioritised to protect victims in the community.
So I'd like to go back to QPS for a moment. Given that there were material on phones and cameras, did QPS access this person's home?
No, we didn't in our investigations. There was no information in regards to any recording at that time for our investigations we were undertaking.
So what were the allegations that you were investigating?
As I say, because some of those matters are before the court, I won't go into specific details about each of the cases.
And sorry, you said there's 23 more victims that have come forward since that.
No, they didn't come forward, they were identified.
Sorry.
Yeah, So one of the things that I am pleased about in regards to this investigation is that we will not be calling on any of those 23 victims to give evidence. We're basing our case on the evidence that was obtained through hard drives and evidence that came through a very, very thorough New South Wales police investigation.
So minimising the re-traumatisation.
100%.
For the parents of these children, were all the parents aware of the abuse that had taken place? Or was this investigation a complete surprise to them?
So I'm not really wanting to go into the reaction of parents. Obviously this is shocking and chilling news. The AFP and the New South Wales Police Force have undertaken to give parents as much support as is needed and as much information as we are able to provide to the parents and carers of the children who were recorded in the alleged child abuse material. Obviously it's really, really chilling and shocking news for any parent.
And are you able to say which parts of Brisbane and Sydney, regionally, north side, south side?
Where we have a number of matters before the court, and I'm not able to elaborate any further. Thank you.
Thank you.